Why wife publicly humiliated me on TikTok, calling me the most hideous man she's ever been with before dumping me. So I disappeared without a word. This morning, after ignoring 87 missed calls, I opened my door to find her sobbing on her knees. You know that feeling when you think you've got life figured out? When everything's not perfect, but it's comfortable, predictable, and safe. Yeah, well, 3 weeks ago I was living in that bubble, and man, did it pop hard. My name's Rowan, and I thought I had a solid thing going with Sienna. We'd been married for 3 years, together for 5, and sure, we weren't some fairy tale couple you see in the movies, but we had our groove down pat. Sundays meant hitting up that little brunch spot on 5th Street where she'd always order the same avocado toast, and I'd go for the breakfast burrito that was way too big for any normal human being. Tuesday nights were sacred for our Netflix binges. She'd pick some reality show that made my brain hurt, and I'd suffer through it, because seeing her laugh was worth the torture. We'd take these random road trips with her crew, Maya, Jess, and that loud one, Becca, and I'd be the designated driver while they'd blast music and sing off-key in the back seat. Hell, Sienna even talked me into joining her book club, which was basically just an excuse for a bunch of 30-something women to drink wine and gossip about their neighbors. I didn't mind, though. Made her happy, and that was enough for me. So when my phone buzzed during my lunch break last Tuesday, I figured it was just another meme from Lucas or maybe Sienna asking me to grab milk on the way home. I was sitting in the staff room at the office, eating my sad desk salad and scrolling through emails, when Lucas's message popped up. Just 4 words that would completely wreck my world. Bro, you need to see this. The attachment took forever to load on the crappy Wi-Fi, and I almost put my phone down to get back to work. God, I wish I had. But curiosity killed the cat, right? Or in this case, curiosity killed my marriage. It was a TikTok video. The thumbnail showed Sienna at some rooftop bar I didn't recognize, wind blowing through her hair, that gorgeous smile I fell in love with plastered across her face. She was with her usual suspects, Maya and Jess flanking her like bodyguards, drinks in hand, city lights twinkling behind them like some Instagram filter come to life. I hit play, expecting to see her doing one of those silly dances she was always trying to teach me in our kitchen. You know, the kind of innocent content that makes you smile and think, that's my girl. But this wasn't that. Not even close. Someone off camera, sounded like Becca's voice, asked the question that would haunt me for weeks. Okay, Sienna, rate your husband on a scale of 1 to 10. I leaned forward, half smiling, expecting her to be sweet about it. Maybe give me a 7 or 8. Make some joke about how I leave my socks on the bedroom floor or something harmless like that. Couples tease each other, right? It's normal. But then she laughed. And it wasn't the laugh I knew, the one that bubbled up when I did something goofy or when we watched old comedies together. This was different. Sharper. Meaner. Like she was sharing a secret joke that I wasn't in on. Rowan, she said, and my name sounded weird coming out of her mouth, like she was talking about a stranger. Honestly, probably the most hideous man I've ever been with. Like, emotionally too. Just embarrassing. The world stopped. I swear to God, everything just froze. The hum of the office air conditioning, the clicking of keyboards, the distant sound of traffic outside. It all faded into this deafening silence. My chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart with a fist. But she wasn't done. Of course she wasn't done. But he does my taxes, so I kept him around, she added with a shrug, and her friends erupted into laughter. That cackling, hyena-like sound that made my skin crawl. Maya nearly spilled her drink, and Jess was doubled over like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. I sat there in that fluorescent-lit staff room, surrounded by the smell of reheated leftovers and burnt coffee, staring at my phone screen as the video looped back to the beginning. Most hideous man. Emotionally hideous. Embarrassing. The words bounced around in my skull like pinballs, each impact leaving a fresh bruise. My hands were shaking. Actually shaking. I looked around the room to see if anyone else had heard, but my coworkers were all buried in their own little worlds, chewing their lunches and scrolling their phones, completely oblivious to the fact that my entire reality had just imploded. I watched it again, and one more time, hoping maybe I'd misheard. Maybe the audio was distorted, maybe it was some cruel joke or misunderstanding. But no, there was my wife of 3 years, the woman who promised to love and honor me, casually destroying me for entertainment while her friends cheered her on. The worst part? The absolute worst part was how natural it sounded. Not like she was being pressured or put on the spot. She said it like she'd been thinking it for a while, like it was just a fact everyone already knew. Like I was the punchline to a joke I didn't even know was being told. I felt my whole chest cave in, like someone had hollowed me out with a spoon. 3 years of marriage, 5 years together, and this is what she really thought of me. That I was hideous and embarrassing. Only worth keeping around for tax season? The video had 847 likes and climbing. The comments were already rolling in. Laughing emojis, savage queen, responses, people tagging their friends. My humiliation was going viral in real time. I closed the app and just sat there, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my phone. Same face I'd seen in the mirror that morning when I kissed her goodbye. Same guy who thought he was heading to work in a solid marriage. Turns out I didn't know jack shit. I didn't respond to Lucas's text. Hell, I didn't respond to anything for the rest of that day. I just sat there in the staff room until my break was over, then walked back to my desk like some kind of zombie. My coworkers probably thought I was coming down with something. I must have looked like death warmed over. The afternoon dragged on forever. Every email I tried to read blurred together into meaningless words. Every phone call felt like it was happening to someone else. I kept replaying that laugh, that casual cruelty in her voice, the way she said my name like it tasted bad in her mouth. Most hideous man I've ever been with. The words were stuck on repeat in my brain like a broken record. Around 4 o'clock, my phone started buzzing. Text after text, notification after notification. The video was spreading. Fast. I could see the numbers climbing every time I accidentally glanced at my screen. 1,200 likes, 1,800, 2,500. People were sharing it, commenting, probably making memes out of my misery. I should have been angry. Part of me wanted to storm out of the office, drive home, and demand an explanation. Scream at her, throw something, make her feel even a fraction of what I was feeling. But mostly, I just felt empty. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but this hollow shell sitting at a desk, pretending to work. When 5:30 finally rolled around, I packed up my stuff with the same mechanical precision I used every day. Laptop in the bag, coffee mug rinsed in the break room sink, jacket from the back of my chair. Same routine I'd done 1,000 times before, except this time I knew I wasn't going home to the life I thought I had. I sat in my car in the parking lot for maybe 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. My phone kept lighting up with messages, Lucas asking if I was okay, my cousin Danny sending the crying laughing emoji, even my old high school teammate Brent reaching out with a "Hey man, you good?" I turned the phone face down and started the engine. The drive home was surreal. Every red light, every familiar turn, every landmark that usually meant I was almost back to my safe space. It all felt foreign now, like I was driving through a movie set of my own life. The coffee shop where we had our first date looked different. The park where we used to walk our neighbor's dog when they were out of town seemed smaller, sadder somehow. I pulled into our driveway, my driveway, I guess, and saw Sienna's car wasn't there yet. She was probably still out with Maya and Jess, maybe making more content about what a loser her husband was. The thought made my stomach turn. I walked up to our front door, key in hand, and just stopped. I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk into that house and pretend everything was normal. Couldn't sit on our couch and make small talk about our days while knowing what she really thought of me. Couldn't kiss her goodnight, knowing she found me emotionally hideous. So I didn't. I got back in my car and drove to the nearest gas station. Bought a duffel bag, one of those cheap canvas ones that smelled like factory chemicals. Filled it with a toothbrush, deodorant, a couple protein bars, and a phone charger. The clerk, some kid with face tattoos and gauges in his ears, gave me a weird look but didn't say anything. Probably thought I was having some kind of midlife crisis. The Sunset Motel on Route 9 wasn't exactly the Ritz, but it was anonymous and they took cash. I signed the register with a fake name, David Miller, because the idea of anyone connecting me to that viral video made me feel sick. The room smelled like cigarettes and industrial air freshener, but it had a bed and a lock on the door, and that was all I needed. I turned off my phone completely. Not silent, not airplane mode, completely off. The sudden quiet was almost jarring after hours of constant buzzing and pinging. No notifications, no calls, no evidence that the outside world existed at all. That first night was the longest of my life. I lay on top of the scratchy comforter, still in my work clothes, staring at the popcorn ceiling and listening to the ice machine humming in the hallway. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear her voice. Most hideous man. Embarrassing. I kept him around. Around midnight, I turned my phone back on just long enough to see the damage. The video had hit 15,000 likes. There were screenshots of it on Twitter, reposts on Instagram stories, reaction videos from people I'd never met. My humiliation had become entertainment for thousands of strangers. Sienna had called me 17 times and sent 32 messages. I didn't read a single one. I just turned the phone off again and went back to staring at the ceiling. I never went home that night. Or the next. I'd vanished completely, and for the first time in hours, I felt something other than pain. I felt FRE. By Thursday morning, I couldn't take another night in that motel room. The walls were closing in, and the smell of stale smoke was starting to make me nauseous. Plus, I was running low on cash, and the thought of using my credit card felt like sending up a flare signal. I needed somewhere to lay low, somewhere safe, and there was only one person I trusted enough to call. Lucas picked up on the second ring. Jesus Christ, Rowan, where the hell are you? I've been worried sick. Can I crash at your place for a few days? I asked, cutting straight to the point. I'll explain when I get there. Of course, man. You don't even need to ask. You still have the spare key? I did. Lucas and I had been tight since college. The kind of friendship where you could show up unannounced and raid each other's fridges without explanation. He lived in this converted warehouse apartment downtown with his girlfriend Mina, a graphic designer who had more tattoos than a sailor and a laugh that could fill a room. When I showed up at their door with my pathetic gas station duffel bag, Lucas took one look at my face and just stepped aside. No questions, no drama, just a cold beer pressed into my hand and a nod toward the guest room. You look like shit, he said, which was probably generous. Feel worse, I replied, and that was all we said about it for the first day. Lucas had always been good about not pushing. Back in college, when I went through my rough patch after my dad died, he'd just exist in the same space as me, playing video games, ordering pizza, letting me process whatever I needed to process without making it weird. This felt exactly like that, except instead of grief, I was drowning in humiliation and betrayal. Meanwhile, my phone was going absolutely insane. Even with it on silent, I could see the screen lighting up constantly from across the room like some kind of digital SOS signal. Sienna was texting nonstop. At first, her messages were casual, almost normal. Dinner tonight. And where are you? Like maybe she hadn't even seen the video herself, or maybe she was pretending it never happened. But as the hours ticked by, her texts got more frantic. Please call me. I'm worried about you. This isn't like you. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now she was worried? After broadcasting to the world that I was hideous and embarrassing? By Friday evening, she'd moved on to calling. A lot. My phone would buzz with her contact photo. This cute selfie we'd taken on our anniversary last year, both of us laughing at something stupid I'd said. Looking at it now made my chest ache in a way I couldn't describe. How do you reconcile the person in that photo with the person who called you the most hideous man she'd ever been with? I blocked her number. Then I blocked her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, every platform where she might try to reach me. It felt like cutting off pieces of myself, deleting 3 years of shared digital history, but I couldn't handle seeing her face or hearing her voice. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But blocking Sienna didn't stop the fallout. Her mother called, sweet Mrs. Patterson, who used to make me her famous chocolate chip cookies and always asked about my work. I stared at her name on my screen for 30 seconds before declining the call. Then came her sister Amy, her college roommate Sarah, even her cousin Brett, who I'd maybe spoken to 5 times in my entire life. Word was spreading through her circle, and apparently, I was the villain for disappearing. The guy who couldn't even face his wife after a silly joke. That's probably how she was spinning it. Just a harmless bit of fun that I was taking way too seriously. The video had hit viral status by then. Over 50,000 likes and climbing. I made the mistake of reading some comments and immediately regretted it. People were calling me everything from pathetic to beta male to suggesting I should lawyer up. Others were defending Sienna, saying I was being dramatic over obvious sarcasm. A few even recognized me from the background of some of her other posts and started digging through my social media history. I deleted everything. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of it gone. If I was going to disappear, I was going to do it right. That's when Mina finally cornered me. I was sitting on their couch Sunday afternoon, staring at the TV without really watching, when she plopped down next to me with 2 cups of coffee. "Rowan," she said in that gentle but direct way of hers. "Do you think she ever truly respected you?" The question hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth to defend Sienna automatically. That's what you do when someone questions your spouse, right? But the words wouldn't come. Instead, my mind started racing backward through our relationship, picking up pieces I'd somehow missed or chosen to ignore. 8 days. That's how long I managed to stay invisible before my past came knocking, literally. I'd been crashing at Lucas and Mina's place, slowly getting used to existing in this weird limbo where I wasn't married but wasn't divorced, wasn't missing but wasn't really present either. It was like being stuck between radio stations, all static and white noise. But I was starting to find a rhythm in it, you know? Sleep until noon, help Mina with her freelance projects, play video games with Lucas, order way too much Chinese takeout. It wasn't much of a life, but it was mine. The problem was, I still had practical shit to deal with. Bills that needed paying, documents that needed signing, mail that was probably piling up on my kitchen counter. I'd been putting it off, hoping somehow it would all just handle itself, but reality doesn't work that way. So Wednesday morning, I figured I'd sneak back to the apartment super early, grab what I needed, and get out before Sienna even knew I'd been there. 7 a.m. seemed like a safe bet. Sienna had never been a morning person. Hell, getting her out of bed before 9 on weekends was like negotiating with a terrorist. She'd be dead asleep, probably wouldn't even hear me come and go. Quick in and out, like a ninja mission. I drove through the empty streets feeling weirdly nostalgic. There's something about your neighborhood at dawn that hits different, all quiet and peaceful, like you're seeing it for the first time. The bodega where I bought my morning coffee was just opening up, the owner hosing down the sidewalk like he did every day. Mrs. Chun from the corner house was already out walking her ancient pug. Normal life happening all around me while my world was still upside down. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a minute, looking at the house that used to be home. It looked smaller somehow, or maybe I was seeing it through different eyes. The little flower bed Sienna had planted last spring was overgrown, weeds poking through the marigolds she'd been so proud of. The porch light was still on, which meant she'd probably forgotten to turn it off again. Some things never change. I grabbed my keys and walked up the front steps, mentally rehearsing my game plan. Mail from the kitchen counter, important documents from the office, maybe some clothes if I had time. In and out. No emotional baggage. No lingering in rooms full of memories. Just business. But when I got to the front door, my plans went straight to hell. She was there, sitting on the doorstep like some kind of broken bird, knees pulled up to her chest, wearing that oversized Adidas hoodie she always stole from my closet. My hoodie, the one that used to smell like her perfume and now probably just smelled like heartbreak. Her head snapped up when she heard my footsteps, and Jesus Christ, she looked rough. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in black rivers, hair tangled like she'd been sleeping outside, eyes red and swollen from crying. This wasn't the polished, confident woman from the TikTok video. This was someone who looked like they'd been hit by a truck. "Rowan," she gasped, scrambling to her feet so fast she almost fell over. "Thank God, I've been waiting." I stopped dead in my tracks, key halfway to the lock. 8 days of building up emotional walls. 8 days of convincing myself I was better off without her. And here she was, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. For a split second, my heart did this stupid flutter thing, like muscle memory kicking in. This was my wife. The woman I'd promised to love through sickness and health, better or worse. But then I remembered her laugh. That cruel, unfamiliar sound as she called me hideous. "Please," she continued, voice cracking. "I didn't mean it. I was drunk. It was just a joke. They pressured me into saying it. I swear to God. You have to believe me." She reached out like she was going to touch my arm. "I've been calling you for days. Your phone goes straight to voicemail. I went to your office, but they said you weren't coming in. I didn't know where else." She was rambling now, words tumbling over each other in desperation. "I love you, Rowan. You know I love you. I would never hurt you on purpose." I stood there staring down at her, feeling like I was watching this whole scene from outside my body. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to pull her into my arms and pretend none of this had happened. That was the old me, the guy who always tried to fix things, who hated seeing anyone in pain. But there was this new voice in my head, cold and clear. Asterisk, she called you the most hideous man she'd ever been with. She said you were embarrassing. She told the world she only kept you around to do her taxes. Asterisk. I didn't say a word. Just stepped around her like she was a piece of furniture, unlocked the door, and walked inside. My hands were shaking, but I kept my face blank, neutral. I grabbed the mail from the counter, bills, junk, a birthday card from my aunt, and headed back toward the door. Sienna followed me, still crying, still talking. Baby, please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. Let me explain. I walked past her again and got in my car. She followed me to the parking lot, bare feet on the cold asphalt, mascara-streaked face pressed against my passenger window as I backed out. I didn't look back. Couldn't look back. Because if I did, I might have actually stopped. The drive back to Lucas's place was a blur. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white, and I kept seeing Sienna's face in my rearview mirror, that desperate, broken look as she chased my car down the street in bare feet. Part of me felt like a complete monster for leaving her there crying on the asphalt, but a bigger part of me felt nothing. Just this weird, hollow numbness where my emotions used to be. When I walked through Lucas's front door, Mina took one look at me and immediately put the kettle on. She had this way of reading people that was almost supernatural. Probably came from years of dealing with difficult clients in her design work. She didn't ask questions, just made me sit at their kitchen island while she bustled around making tea like she was performing some kind of healing ritual. Rough morning, she finally asked, sliding a steaming mug across the counter. I told her everything. About finding Sienna on my doorstep, about how destroyed she looked, about the things she said, and how I just walked away without saying a word. Mina listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making these little sounds that meant she was processing. Do you feel guilty? She asked when I finished. Shouldn't I? I shot back. I mean, she was falling apart. I've never seen her like that. That's not what I asked. I thought about it for a minute, really thought about it. No, I admitted. I don't feel guilty. Is that fucked up? Maybe it's healthy, Mina said, wrapping her hands around her own mug. Maybe your gut is trying to tell you something your heart doesn't want to hear yet. That's when she suggested we do what she called a relationship autopsy. Sounded morbid as hell, but I was desperate to make sense of what had happened to my marriage. We spread out on their living room floor with notebooks and started mapping out the timeline of my relationship with Sienna, looking for patterns I might have missed. It started innocent enough. Remember when she said this? What about that time she did that thing? But the more we dug, the more these little moments started connecting into something bigger and uglier. Like how Sienna always called me boring whenever I didn't want to go to her friends' parties. Not playful teasing, actual annoyance, like I was personally ruining her fun by preferring quiet nights at home. Or how she'd roll her eyes when I got excited about work stuff, saying things like, God, Rowan, you're such a nerd, in this tone that made me feel small. What about social media? Mina asked, pulling up Instagram on her phone. How did she present your relationship online? That hit me like a punch to the gut. Sienna was always posting mirror selfies, food pics, nights out with her girls, but now that I thought about it, when was the last time I'd appeared in any of them? She'd post group shots from our road trips, but somehow I was always cropped out or standing in the back where you could barely see me. When she did include me, it was usually just my hand holding her drink or the back of my head. Holy shit, I muttered, scrolling through months of her posts. Look at this. It's like I didn't even exist. Mina leaned over to see. When's the last time she posted a couple photo? I kept scrolling, going back further and further. Our anniversary dinner in March. Nope, just a shot of her outfit. Valentine's Day, just the flowers I bought her. Christmas morning, just her opening presents. No sign of the guy who spent 3 hours assembling the desk she'd wanted. Finally found one from last August. Almost a year ago. We were at some barbecue, and she'd grabbed my phone to take a selfie of us. I looked happy, genuinely happy, arm around her shoulders, both of us laughing at something. But even in that photo, she'd positioned herself so she took up most of the frame. Jesus, I breathed. How did I not notice this? Because you trusted her, Mina said gently. Because when you love someone, you assume they love you back the same way. We kept digging. How she always introduced me to new people as my husband Rowan, in this flat, almost apologetic tone, like she was explaining why I was there. How she'd correct my stories when I told them at parties, making me sound less interesting or successful than I actually was. How she always had an opinion about my clothes, my haircut, the way I laughed too loud in restaurants. She was managing your image, Mina observed. Like you were a project she was constantly trying to fix. The worst part was remembering how I'd internalized all of it. Started dressing differently, talking less in groups, making myself smaller to fit whatever version of me she seemed to prefer. I'd convinced myself I was being considerate, being a good husband. But really, I was disappearing. Then Mina dropped the bomb that changed everything. Rowan, she said, setting down her notebook and looking at me seriously. What if the TikTok wasn't a mistake at all? What if she wanted out, but didn't want to be the bad guy? The question hung in the air like smoke. What do you mean? Think about it. She humiliates you publicly, makes you look pathetic, then gets to play the victim when you leave. Everyone feels sorry for her. The wife whose husband couldn't take a joke. She gets out of the marriage without having to be the one who asked for divorce. My blood ran cold. The more I thought about it, the more sense it made. Sienna was smart, calculating. She'd never do anything that messy by accident. 2 weeks into living at Lucas and Mina's place, I realized I couldn't keep hiding forever. Don't get me wrong. They were amazing about letting me crash, never making me feel like a burden or asking when I planned to get my shit together. But I could see the careful way they moved around me, like I was made of glass and might shatter if they breathed too hard. I was tired of being broken, so I decided to rebuild. Not the old me. That guy was clearly an idiot who missed every red flag in the book, but someone new. Someone who wouldn't disappear into the background of his own life. First thing I did was change my phone number. Went down to the Verizon store and got a completely fresh start. New number, new phone, new everything. The teenage sales associate with the lip piercing looked at me like I was running from the mob or something, but I didn't care. I needed to control who could reach me, and right now, that was a very short list. Lucas was the first person I gave the new number to, obviously. Then Mina, my boss at work, couldn't exactly ghost my job forever. My mom, though I dreaded that conversation. She'd been texting my old number for weeks, probably wondering why her son had suddenly fallen off the face of the earth. But Sienna? Her family? Her friends who thought this whole thing was just a big misunderstanding? They got nothing. Next was the gym. I'd let my membership lapse months ago because Sienna always complained that I spent too much time there, said it was selfish to work out after work instead of coming straight home. Looking back, that should have been a massive red flag, but I'd bought into her guilt trip. Convinced myself that being a good husband meant sacrificing things I enjoyed. Walking back into Iron Temple Fitness felt like coming home. The familiar smell of rubber mats and disinfectant, the sound of weights clanking, the focused energy of people pushing themselves. It was exactly what I needed. I signed up for a year-long membership on the spot, like I was making a promise to my future self. The first few workouts were rough. 3 months of sitting on couches eating takeout had turned my muscles to mush, and my stamina was shot. But there was something therapeutic about the burn, about feeling my body wake up again after months of sleepwalking through life. Every rep, every set, every drop of sweat felt like proof that I was still here, still capable of growth. Then there was the software certification I'd been putting off for years. Back when I first mentioned it to Sienna, she'd laughed and said it was pointless busy work that wouldn't lead anywhere. She had this way of dismissing my ambitions that made me doubt myself, made me think maybe she was right, and I was just wasting time on pipe dreams. But fuck that noise. I enrolled in the online course that same week and threw myself into it like my life depended on it. Turns out, when you're not being constantly told your goals are stupid, it's amazing how motivated you can get. I'd study for hours at Lucas's kitchen table, working through practice problems and watching tutorial videos, feeling my brain stretch in ways it hadn't in years. Dr. Anika was Mina's suggestion. You need to talk to someone neutral, she'd said one evening after watching me stare at my laptop for 3 hours without actually accomplishing anything. Someone who isn't invested in your marriage or your past. Just someone who can help you sort through all this noise in your head. I'd never done therapy before. Always thought it was for people with real problems, not guys whose wives made fun of them on social media. But sitting in Dr. Anika's office for the first time, this calm, book-lined space that smelled like lavender and felt like a sanctuary. I realized how much I'd been carrying around without even knowing it. "Tell me about yourself, Rowan," she'd said in that first session. "Not about your marriage, not about what happened, just about you." It was harder than I expected. I'd been half of a couple for so long. I'd almost forgotten I was a whole person on my own. But slowly, session by session, I started remembering who I was before I became Sienna's husband. The guy who loved hiking and programming and terrible sci-fi movies. The guy who used to make his friends laugh, who had opinions and dreams, and wasn't afraid to take up space. 3 weeks into this new routine, I felt brave enough to post something on social media. Just a simple photo from my morning hike. Nothing fancy, just me standing on this overlook with the sunrise hitting my face. Genuine smile, no filter needed. I looked happy. Actually happy, not performing happiness for someone else's benefit. The response blew me away. Friends I hadn't heard from in months started commenting and messaging. "Looking good, man. Where has this guy been hiding? About time we saw that smile again." Even people from work were reaching out, saying they were glad to see me getting back out there. But the comment that hit me hardest came from my college buddy Mike. "Dude, I haven't seen you look this relaxed in years. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." I stared at that comment for a long time, because it made me realize something I hadn't wanted to admit. I hadn't been happy in my marriage. Not really. I'd been so busy trying to be the husband Sienna wanted that I'd completely lost track of being the person I actually was. I was feeling pretty good about myself for the first time in weeks. The gym was working, therapy was helping, and I was actually making progress on my certification. It felt like I was finally getting my head above water, you know? Like maybe I could build something new from the wreckage of my marriage. Then my phone buzzed with a message that sent me straight back into the deep end. "Dude, you need to know something." It was from Jonah, of all people. Jonah fucking Martinez, who I barely knew beyond the fact that he used to hang out with Sienna's crew back in college. We'd maybe exchanged 50 words total over the years, usually just, "Hey man," at parties or group hangouts. So when his name popped up on my screen, my first instinct was to ignore it. Probably just another person who'd seen the viral video and wanted to offer their unsolicited opinion about my marriage. But something about the tone made me pause. This wasn't a casual check-in or some dude bro trying to give me advice. This felt urgent. I was sitting in Lucas's living room, laptop open with practice coding problems scattered around me, when I opened the message. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Screenshots. A whole string of them from some group chat I'd never seen before. The participants were all names I recognized: Maya, Jess, Becca, and Sienna. The timestamp showed these messages were from 3 weeks before the TikTok. 3 fucking weeks. I had to read them twice before my brain could process what I was seeing. Maya: "So when are you finally gonna dump his ass? You've been talking about it for months." Sienna: I know. I just need to figure out how to make it look like he dumped me. I can't be the bad guy here." Jess: "Why does it matter? Just break up with him." Sienna: "Because if I dump him, everyone's gonna ask why. His family loves me, my family loves him. All our friends think we're this perfect couple. I need a reason that makes me look like the victim." Becca: "Girl, you're overthinking this. Just tell him you're not happy." Sienna: "No way. Then I look like the shallow bitch who left her nice husband for no reason. I need him to do something awful, or I need to make him look bad enough that people understand why I had to leave." Maya: "What if you embarrass him publicly? Like, really humiliate him so he can't show his face around our friend group anymore?" Sienna: "That's actually not a terrible idea. If I make him look pathetic enough, he'll probably disappear on his own." Jess: "Do it at Kelly's birthday next weekend. Lots of people will be there. Someone's bound to be recording." Sienna: "What would I even say? I can't just randomly roast my husband for no reason." Becca: "Truth or dare? Never have I ever? There's always some game where you can accidentally throw someone under the bus." Maya: "Or just wait for someone to ask about your relationship. Happens all the time when people are drunk." Sienna: "You guys are evil." I love it. If this works, drinks are on me for a month. I sat there staring at my phone screen, reading and rereading those messages until the words started to blur together. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. This wasn't some drunken mistake or moment of poor judgment. This was a calculated plan. A fucking conspiracy to destroy me so she could play the victim. The TikTok wasn't filmed at Kelly's birthday party. It was at some rooftop bar the following weekend. But the intent was the same. She'd been shopping around for the perfect moment to humiliate me, waiting for the right audience and the right setup to execute her plan. And I'd walked right into it like a lamb to slaughter. There were more screenshots. Jonah had sent me the whole conversation thread, including messages from after the video went viral. Maya, holy shit, it worked. Rowan totally disappeared. Sienna, I know, right? I was worried he might actually fight back or something. Jess. The video's everywhere. My cousin in Portland sent it to me. Sienna, this is perfect. Now when people ask what happened, I can just say he couldn't handle a little joke and abandoned me. Poor heartbroken wife whose husband ran away instead of talking things through. Becca, you're a genius. Evil, but genius. Sienna, I learned from the best face-blowing a kiss. I was going to be sick. Actually, physically sick. I stumbled to Lucas's bathroom and dry-heaved into the toilet for 5 minutes, my whole body shaking with rage and disgust. 3 years of marriage, and this is what it came down to. I was just an inconvenience she needed to remove, a problem that required a strategic solution. When I finally composed myself enough to go back to my phone, there was another message from Jonah. I'm really sorry, man. I knew something was off about that whole situation, but I didn't know how bad it was until Becca got drunk last night and started bragging about the master plan. Thought you deserved to know the truth. I typed back with trembling fingers. Why are you telling me this? Because what she did was fucked up. And because you seem like a decent guy who got screwed over by someone playing games. Nobody deserves that shit. I sat on the edge of Lucas's bathtub for an hour, just breathing and trying to process what I'd learned. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd planned to grow old with, had spent weeks plotting my public humiliation like it was some kind of game. She'd sat across from me at breakfast, kissed me goodbye in the mornings, asked me about my day, all while planning my destruction. I spent 3 days staring at those screenshots, reading them over and over until I had every word memorized. Every cruel joke, every calculated move, every moment where my wife and her friends treated my destruction like some kind of twisted group project. 3 days of feeling like a complete fool, wondering how I'd missed all the signs that the person sleeping next to me every night was actively plotting against me. The worst part wasn't even the humiliation. It was the realization of how long this had been going on. You've been talking about it for months, Maya had written. Months. While I was doing her taxes, planning our anniversary dinner, saving up for that vacation to Costa Rica she'd been hinting about. She was already 3 steps out the door and figuring out how to make me look like the bad guy on her way out. But somewhere around day 4, the hurt started transforming into something else. Something colder and sharper, like ice crystallizing in my chest. I wasn't just devastated anymore. I was pissed. She'd played me like a fiddle, manipulated me into thinking I was the problem, made me question my own reality while she executed her master plan. And then she'd had the absolute nerve to show up on my doorstep crying, begging for forgiveness for what she called a drunken mistake. Fuck that. And fuck her. Dr. Anika probably would have told me to sit with the anger, process it, maybe write a letter I'd never send. But I wasn't interested in the healthy, therapeutic approach right now. I needed to look Sienna in the eye and let her know that I knew. Not for closure. Closure was overrated anyway. This was about making sure she understood tea. So I did something I hadn't done in over a month. I unblocked her number and sent her a text. Let's talk. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Uptown Cafe. The response came back so fast, I wondered if she'd been staring at her phone for weeks, waiting for me to contact her. Like she'd been sitting there hitting refresh on our conversation thread every 5 minutes. Yes. Thank you. I'll be there. Thank you. Like I was doing her some kind of favor by giving her the chance to lie to my face again. Like this was some generous gift instead of what it actually was, her final performance review. I spent that night planning exactly how this was going to go. What I'd say, how I'd say it, what expression I'd wear when I showed her the screenshots. I practiced in Lucas's bathroom mirror until I could deliver my lines without my voice shaking, without any emotion leaking through that she could use against me. Uptown Cafe was perfect for what I had planned. Public enough that she couldn't make a scene without embarrassing herself, but not so crowded that we couldn't have a private conversation. Plus, it was neutral territory, somewhere we'd never been together, so there wouldn't be any sentimental memories clouding my judgment or making me go soft at the crucial moment. I got there 20 minutes early, picked a table in the back corner where I could see the whole place, and ordered a black coffee I didn't really want. My hands were steady as I wrapped them around the warm mug, which surprised me. I'd expected to be nervous, maybe even emotional. Part of me thought I might still have feelings for her that would complicate things. But sitting there waiting for her, I felt nothing but cold determination. She walked in exactly at 3, and Jesus Christ, she'd really gone all out for this performance. Hair freshly done in those soft beachy waves I used to love running my fingers through after she'd spent an hour styling them. Makeup perfectly applied to highlight her cheekbones and make her eyes look bigger, more innocent. She was wearing that blue sundress with the tiny flowers, the one she'd worn on our second anniversary, the one she knew was my absolute favorite because I'd told her a dozen times how beautiful she looked in it. The whole thing was so calculated it almost made me laugh. She was still playing games, still trying to manipulate me even now, even after everything that had happened. Probably figured if she looked pretty enough, vulnerable enough, nostalgic enough, I'd forget why I was angry and take her back like some pathetic puppy who couldn't stay mad at his owner. She paused in the doorway, scanning the cafe until she spotted me. When our eyes met, she gave me this soft, hopeful smile that might have worked a month ago, back when I still thought she was capable of genuine emotion instead of just really good acting. She walked over slowly, like she was approaching a wounded animal that might bolt at any sudden movement. Slid into the seat across from me with practiced grace, setting her purse down carefully and folding her hands on the table like she was posing for a photo. "Hi," she said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. The same tone she used to use when she was trying to get out of trouble, like when she'd maxed out her credit card or forgotten to pay the electric bill. "Sienna," I replied, keeping my voice completely neutral. No warmth, no anger, nothing she could read or react to. "You look good," she continued, probably hoping for some kind of response that would give her an opening. "Really good. You've been working out again, haven't you? I can tell. It suits you." She was fishing, trying to get me to engage with small talk so she could work her way up to the bigger conversation. I just stared at her, let the silence stretch out until it got uncomfortable. Watched her fidget with her purse strap and glance around the cafe like she was looking for backup or an escape route. "Rowan, I know you're angry," she finally said when it became clear I wasn't going to make this easy for her. "And you have every right to be. What I said in that video was horrible and cruel, and I didn't mean any of it. Not one word." Her voice was starting to shake now, right on cue. I was drunk, and the girls were being awful, egging me on, and I just said the first stupid thing that popped into my head. "You know how I get when I'm drinking? I say things I don't mean. You've seen me do it before." She paused, waiting for me to jump in with some kind of reassurance or forgiveness. When I didn't, she kept going, voice getting more desperate. "I've been going crazy without you. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I just keep thinking about how badly I screwed up. My mom keeps asking where you are, and I don't know what to tell her because I can't explain how I could hurt the best thing that ever happened to me." Now the tears were starting to form in the corners of her eyes, perfectly timed. "Please, baby, give me a chance to make this right. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes. I love you so much, and I know you love me too, despite everything." The performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, if I hadn't seen those screenshots, I might have actually believed her. The trembling lip, the way her voice cracked on, "I love you." Even the single tear that rolled down her cheek, right on schedule. She'd probably practiced this whole speech in her own mirror. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened up the screenshots Jonah had sent me, and slid it across the table without saying a word. She looked down at the screen, and I watched her face go through about 5 different emotions in the space of 2 seconds. Confusion as she tried to figure out what she was looking at, recognition when she realized what it was, panic as she understood the implications, and finally something that looked almost like relief. Like she was tired of pretending to be sorry. "What is this?" she asked, but her voice had already lost that soft, vulnerable quality. She knew exactly what it was. "Your plan," I said simply. "The whole thing. From start to finish." She stared at the phone for a long moment, scrolling through the screenshots with trembling fingers. I could see her reading her own words, remembering the conversations, probably trying to figure out which one of her friends had betrayed her. When she looked back up at me, the mask had completely fallen away. No more tears, no more innocent victim act. just cold calculation staring back at me. Rowan, I can explain. No. I cut her off, standing up from the table. You can't. Because there's no explanation that makes this okay. You planned this whole thing. You sat in our kitchen, in our bed, planning how to destroy me, and then you executed it perfectly. I could see other customers starting to look our way, but I didn't give a shit. I'm not here for an apology or closure or whatever other bullshit you want to sell me. I just wanted you to know that I know. Your little game worked exactly like you wanted it to, except for one thing. What? She whispered. You thought I'd come crawling back. You thought I'd be so broken and desperate that I'd take you back no matter what you did to me. But guess what, Sienna? I'm not that guy anymore. And I'm definitely not your guy anymore. I dropped a $5 bill on the table for my untouched coffee and walked toward the door. Rowan, wait. I didn't look back. Didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing whatever emotion she was performing now. I just walked out of that cafe and out of her life, leaving her sitting alone with the evidence of her betrayal, exactly like she'd left me. Walking out of that cafe felt like the final scene of a movie, dramatic, satisfying, complete. I'd said what I needed to say, delivered my knockout punch, and left Sienna sitting there with the wreckage of her lies. For about 48 hours, I felt like I'd won something. Like I'd reclaimed some piece of myself that she'd stolen. But then the adrenaline wore off, and I was back to just being a guy whose marriage had imploded in the most public way possible. The confrontation had given me closure, sure, but it didn't magically fix the fact that I was still sleeping on my best friend's couch, still dealing with the fallout of being married to a sociopath, still trying to figure out who the hell I was supposed to be now. That's when my phone buzzed with a message from someone I definitely wasn't expecting. Hey, this might seem random, but I heard about what happened with you and Sienna. I'm Adrielle. I've been dating Marcus from her office. Would you be up for grabbing coffee sometime? I think we might have some things to talk about. Adrielle. I vaguely remembered the name from a few work events Sienna had dragged me to. Tall, mixed-race woman with natural curls and this really genuine laugh. She worked in marketing for some tech startup and was dating Marcus, the guy from Sienna's accounting department who always wore bow ties and talked about craft beer like it was high art. My first instinct was to ignore the message. I'd just finished burning bridges with my ex-wife. Did I really need to get involved in whatever workplace drama Sienna had stirred up? But something about the way Adrielle had phrased it made me curious. We might have some things to talk about. Sounded less like gossip and more like she had actual information I needed to hear. Plus, I was going stir-crazy at Lucas's place. Between the gym, therapy, and my certification course, I had a routine going, but I was still living in this weird isolation bubble. Maybe talking to someone who'd witnessed Sienna's bullshit from the outside would help me make sense of things. So I texted back, sure, tomorrow afternoon work for you. We met at Grind Coffee, this little independent place in the arts district that was always packed with freelancers and college students. Adrielle was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs in front of her. She'd gotten me a black coffee without asking. Either a lucky guess or she'd done her homework. Thanks for meeting me, she said as I sat down. I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk to anyone connected to that whole situation. Honestly, I almost didn't respond, I admitted. But curiosity got the better of me. She laughed, and it was the same genuine sound I remembered from those office parties. Fair enough. I probably would have done the same thing if some random person reached out after my life exploded. There was something immediately comfortable about talking to Adrielle. No awkward small talk. No walking on eggshells around the elephant in the room. She dove right in. So Marcus told me what really happened, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. About the group chat, the planning, all of it. I wanted you to know that not everyone bought into Sienna's victim act. That caught me off guard. Marcus knew about the group chat? Not at the time. But after your little confrontation at the cafe, which, by the way, was apparently legendary, Sienna came into work the next day completely unhinged. Started telling anyone who'd listened that you'd ambushed her with fake screenshots and made a scene in public. Adrielle shook her head, looking disgusted. Marcus didn't buy it for a second. He'd watched her operate in the office for 2 years, seen how she manipulated situations to make herself look good. So he started asking around, and eventually Jonah spilled everything. Jesus, how many people know? More than you'd think. Turns out Sienna wasn't as subtle as she thought she was. People had noticed things, how she talked about you, how she acted when you weren't around. The TikTok was just the final piece of evidence everyone needed to see what was really going on. We talked for 2 hours, and it was the first time since this whole nightmare started that I felt like someone truly understood what I'd been through. Adrielle had her own stories about Sienna's manipulative behavior at work, how she'd throw co-workers under the bus to make herself look better, how she'd spread gossip and then play innocent when it caused drama. She tried to get Marcus fired last year, Adrielle told me, stirring sugar into her second cup of coffee. Told their boss that he was stealing client information and selling it to competitors. Complete bullshit, obviously, but it took Marcus weeks to clear his name. Why? I asked. What did Marcus ever do to her? He got promoted to a position she wanted. That was it. In Sienna's world, if you have something she wants, you become an enemy who needs to be eliminated. The more we talked, the more I realized how lucky I was to be out of that marriage. Sienna hadn't just been a bad wife. She was genuinely toxic, the kind of person who left destruction in her wake wherever she went. I'd been so focused on what was wrong with me, what I'd done to deserve her treatment, that I'd never considered the possibility that the problem was entirely hers. Can I ask you something? Adrielle said as we were getting ready to leave. When you found out about the group chat, were you more hurt or more angry? I thought about it for a minute. Angry, definitely. The hurt was already there from the video, but finding out it was premeditated, that made me furious. Good, she said, standing up and grabbing her jacket. Hurt means you still cared about her opinion. Anger means you know you deserved better. We exchanged numbers and made plans to hang out again the following week. Nothing romantic. We were both clear about that. But it felt good to have someone in my corner who understood the situation without me having to explain every detail. As I drove back to Lucas's place, I realized something had shifted. For weeks, I'd been carrying around this sense of shame, like I was somehow responsible for what had happened to my marriage. Like if I'd been a better husband, more attractive, more successful, more whatever, Sienna wouldn't have felt the need to humiliate me. But talking to Adrielle had helped me see the truth. This was never about me. Sienna was a narcissist who'd used me as a convenient target for her own insecurities and manipulations. She would have done this to anyone who got in the way of what she wanted. I just happened to be the poor bastard who married her. That night, I opened up the Notes app on my phone and wrote something I'd been thinking about for days. Sometimes the betrayal is the beginning, not the end. It felt like the truest thing I'd written in months. Sienna's betrayal hadn't ended my life. It had started a new one. A better one. A life where I didn't have to shrink myself to fit someone else's expectations. Where I could be proud of who I was instead of constantly apologizing for existing. For the first time since this whole thing started, I was actually excited about my future. And I had a feeling Adrielle was going to be an important part of figuring out what that future looked like. 40 days. That's how long it's been since the TikTok that broke me. And I'm sitting here on my new balcony watching the sun come up over a city that feels completely different than it did 6 weeks ago. Same buildings, same streets, same coffee shops on every corner, but everything looks brighter somehow. Like someone adjusted the contrast on my entire life. I moved out of Lucas and Mina's place 2 weeks ago. Don't get me wrong. They were amazing, probably saved my sanity during those first few weeks when I was basically a walking shell of a human being. But there comes a point when you need to stop hiding and start living again. And that point came when I realized I was spending more time worrying about being a burden than actually healing. My new apartment is nothing fancy. A 1-bedroom in a converted warehouse about 20 minutes from downtown. Exposed brick walls, hardwood floors that creak when you walk on them, and windows that let in so much light I don't need to turn on a lamp until evening. It's the first place that's ever been entirely mine, decorated with my stuff, arranged the way I want it, no compromises or negotiations required. The best part is the balcony. It's barely big enough for a chair and a small table, but it faces east, so I get the sunrise every morning. I've started drinking my coffee out there, just sitting in the quiet and watching the world wake up. It's become this ritual that grounds me, reminds me that I made it through another night, and I'm still here, still breathing, still moving forward. Sienna doesn't know where I live now. Hell, she probably doesn't even know I've moved, which is exactly how I want it. I've blocked her on every platform imaginable: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, even Venmo, because I knew she'd try to use payment requests as a way to contact me. My phone number is still changed, my social media presence has been completely rebuilt from scratch, and I've made it clear to everyone in my life that sharing information about me with her is a hard boundary I won't tolerate. It sounds extreme, but it's necessary. Because the truth is, Sienna isn't done trying to control the narrative. Even now, 40 days later, she's still posting cryptic shit online about toxic relationships and learning to love yourself after being emotionally abused. Last week, she shared some quote about surviving narcissistic partners that made me laugh so hard I almost choked on my protein shake. The projection is unreal. But I guess when you're a master manipulator, admitting you're the problem isn't really an option. Easier to flip the script and paint yourself as the victim of the very behavior you spent months orchestrating. I know about her posts because Adrielle keeps me updated. We've become genuine friends over the past month. The kind of friendship that develops when you bond over surviving the same toxic person. She'll screenshot Sienna's latest attempts at revisionist history, and we'll text about how delusional it all is. It's therapeutic, actually, having someone who sees through the bullshit as clearly as I do. Marcus finally quit his job last week after Sienna tried to get him written up for creating a hostile work environment. Apparently, she claimed he was spreading rumors about her personal life and making her uncomfortable. The irony would be hilarious if it wasn't so predictable. Classic Sienna. When you can't control someone, you try to destroy them. But here's the thing that would probably blow her mind. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not sitting around plotting revenge or hoping karma catches up with her. I'm just free. Free in a way I didn't even realize I wasn't before. My new job starts Monday. Senior software developer at a fintech startup downtown. 30% pay raise from my old position, and they're paying for me to finish my certification. The interview process was intense. 3 rounds, technical challenges, the whole 9 yards, but I crushed it. Turns out, when you're not constantly being told your ambitions are pointless, you can actually achieve some pretty cool stuff. I've been going to the gym religiously, and the transformation isn't just physical. Yeah, I'm in the best shape of my life. But more importantly, I feel strong again. Not just muscle-wise, but mentally. Like I can handle whatever gets thrown at me because I already survived the worst thing I could imagine. Dr. Anika and I had our last session yesterday. Not because I'm cured or anything dramatic like that, but because I've reached the point where I'm not just surviving. I'm actually thriving. She said something that stuck with me. Supposed to be. That hit hard because it's so true. For 3 years, I'd been living my life according to Sienna's script. Dressing how she wanted me to dress, socializing when and how she approved, pursuing goals that didn't threaten her ego, shrinking myself to fit into her vision of what a husband should be. I convinced myself it was compromise, but really it was just slow-motion erasure. The guitar lessons were Adrielle's suggestion. You need something that's purely for you, she'd said. Something that has nothing to do with your past or your career or anything practical. Just something that makes you happy. I was skeptical at first. 32 felt a little old to be picking up a new instrument. But my teacher, this dude named Jake who's covered in tattoos and plays in 3 different bands, made it clear that music doesn't have an expiration date. Dude, I've got students in their 70s learning Metallica. You're basically a baby. 3 weeks in, and I can play 4 songs. Badly, but recognizably. There's something incredibly satisfying about learning something completely new, about sucking at it, and then gradually getting less terrible through pure persistence. Plus, it's loud enough to drown out any lingering thoughts about my ex-wife, which is honestly a bonus. Last night, Sienna posted a TikTok that Adrielle immediately sent to me. Same sad piano music she always uses when she wants sympathy. Same soft lighting that makes her look vulnerable and ethereal. The caption read, "You don't know what you have till it's gone. Missing my person, broken heart, #heartbreak, #second chances, #lost love." I watched it once, felt absolutely nothing, and deleted the message thread. Didn't save it, didn't screenshot it, didn't spend an hour analyzing what she meant or whether it was directed at me. Just watched it and moved on with my evening. That's when I knew I was really free. When her attempts at manipulation felt like background noise instead of emotional warfare. I brewed my coffee this morning the same way I have for the past 2 weeks. French press, Ethiopian beans from the roastery down the street. No sugar because I'm trying to appreciate the actual flavor instead of masking it. Sat on my balcony in my favorite chair, the one I bought specifically because Sienna would have hated it. Leather, worn, too masculine for her aesthetic. and watch the city come alive. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Drinks tonight? Mina wants to hear about the new job. Another from Adrielle. Guitar lesson at 3, right? I want to hear you play that song you've been practicing. Another from my mom. So proud of you, sweetheart. Lunch Sunday. A calendar reminder that I have a hiking meetup tomorrow morning with a group I found online. All these connections, all these plans, all these people who see me as I actually am instead of some disappointing version of who they wish I could be. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I'm not invisible. I'm not hideous. I'm not someone's consolation prize or tax preparation service. I'm just me, and that's more than enough. 40 days ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered, that I'd have to start from scratch and somehow rebuild myself into someone worthy of love and respect. Turns out, I didn't need to rebuild myself at all. I just needed to stop letting someone else tear me down. Sienna thought she was ending my story when she humiliated me on that rooftop. But really, she was just getting to the good part, the part where I realize I'm the protagonist of my own life, not a supporting character in hers. And this protagonist? He's got plans. Big ones. The kind that don't require anyone else's approval or permission. The kind that start with a sunrise and a cup of coffee and the absolute certainty that whatever comes next, I can handle it. Because I'm not hers anymore. I'm mine.